from David Macdonald's bloody massacres to Robert Chico's high-profile murders. These are some of the most dangerous Hells Angels in history. Number 1. David Macdonald, Carroll. One of the most feared members was David Macdonald Carroll, a man who rose through the ranks of the Hells Angels to become a trusted ally of Maurice, one of the club's most powerful leaders. Carroll was involved in the infamous Lennoxville Massacre, a bloody event that saw 5 Hells Angels members murdered in an effort to cleanse the club of those deemed untrustworthy. His involvement in the massacre solidified his place in biker history, and despite being charged with murder, he managed to avoid conviction. But Carroll was no stranger to staying one step ahead of the law. In 2001, he disappeared, leaving rumors of a hidden fortune stashed away in Antigua. To this day, no one knows where he went, and his name remains a mystery in the criminal underworld. At number 2, Alan Pasaro. Alan Pasaro's life took a violent turn that would forever change the Hells Angels' reputation, starting at the infamous Altamont Free Concert in 1969. The event, meant to be a peaceful gathering, descended into chaos, with the Hells Angels hired as security for the concert. However, things quickly spiraled out of control when a confrontation between the Hells Angels and Meredith Hunter, a member of the audience, turned deadly. Pasaro, armed with a knife, fatally injured the man in an act of violence that shocked the world. The incident became one of the darkest moments in Hells Angels history. Pasaro was arrested and charged with murder following the death of the concert-goer. But the trial was filled with controversy. The footage of the event, which showed the audience member with a weapon, played a pivotal role in his defense. Despite the violent nature of the attack, the jury ultimately acquitted Pasaro, ruling that he acted in self-defense. This outcome left a stain on the Hells Angels' reputation, and the Altamont incident became forever linked to their name. Pasaro's life didn't end quietly, though. In 1985, he was found dead under suspicious circumstances. Authorities were never able to definitively determine the cause of death, but rumors circulated that it might have been connected to his violent past. Regardless of the cause, Pasaro's death left an indelible mark on the Hells Angels' legacy, adding to the long history of violence, chaos, and criminality associated with the club. Number 3. Maurice Boucher. Maurice Boucher was the mastermind behind one of the bloodiest biker wars in Quebec's history. As the leader of the Hells Angels Montreal chapter, Boucher's violent reign sparked a brutal conflict between rival gangs, leaving over 100 dead and hundreds injured. His influence spread across Quebec, dominating the drug trade and violently asserting control. But his empire crumbled in 2002 when he was convicted for orchestrating the murders of 2 corrections officers. In 2014, Boucher was expelled from the Hells Angels, marking a significant downfall for a once feared leader. He spent his final years in prison, battling cancer, and passed away in 2022, leaving behind a legacy of destruction. Number 4. Robert Mora. Robert Chico. Mora was another dangerous figure who made his mark on the Hells Angels. A former member of the Dirty Dozen gang, Mora's violent rise in Arizona's biker scene eventually led him to the Hells Angels. At just 24, he was convicted of manslaughter and became known for his brutal nature. His reputation grew as he became a feared enforcer for the club. However, his violent past caught up with him when he was charged with murder and sentenced to life in prison. Despite his dark legacy, the Hells Angels honored him after his death, giving him a final tribute. Number 5. Michel Janae. Also known as Jinx, Janae was one of the most notorious enforcers in Hells Angels history, known for his brutal role in the Lennoxville Massacre, a bloody event that would forever cement his legacy in the club. In 1985, 5 Hells Angels members were brutally murdered, and Janae was right at the heart of it. The bodies were wrapped in sleeping bags, weighted down with cinder blocks, and dumped in a river, a chilling method to hide the evidence. The massacre was a clear sign of the violent inner workings of the Hells Angels, and Janae's involvement in this grisly act was part of his long and violent criminal history. His past was filled with betrayal, bloodshed, and loyalty to the Hells Angels, but it was his role in the Lennoxville massacre that eventually led to his downfall. Janae became the focal point in the investigation, and he was charged with the murder of a fellow biker, Claude Roy, a prospect for the Laval chapter who was suspected of being a police informant. Roy's murder was a cold-blooded execution ordered by the gang for disobeying their rules, and Janae was the one to carry out the gruesome act. For this, he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. But Janae's story didn't end behind bars. In 2010, after serving years for his crimes, Janae was granted parole, a decision that shocked many given his violent past. During his parole hearing, he revealed shocking details about the gang's bloody history, spilling secrets about the inner workings of the Hells Angels, including how they dealt with their enemies and the code they lived by. His confession added another layer of dark intrigue to the Hells Angels story, further exposing the violent culture that had driven the gang for decades. Number 6. George Wethern, the man who betrayed his brothers for his own freedom. George Wethern, a member of the Oakland chapter, embodied the classic outlaw spirit of the Angels. Known as one of the most influential drug traffickers on the West Coast, he thrived on the rush of motorcycles, brawls, women, and narcotics. He was deeply immersed in the hidden world of the club until he found himself involved in a grisly discovery on his ranch when the bodies of multiple people were found buried there. As a witness in the case, Wethern's testimony led to the conviction of several Hells Angels members. He would later enter witness protection and write a tell-all book, Wayward Angel, exposing the club's dark secrets. At number 7. Michael Sky Langlois. Michael Langlois' life was marked by his involvement in the bloody Lennoxville purge and his escape from the law. The chilling event shook a small town in Quebec's eastern townships. What began as a private meeting between brothers in arms ended in one of the bloodiest internal purges in Canadian biker history. Inside the secluded Hells Angels bunker, on a wooded hill near Sherbrooke, 5 members of the now-defunct Laval chapter walked into what they believed was a routine gathering, but never made it out alive. 2 others from the same crew, who missed the meeting, unknowingly escaped death that night. The massacre became infamous as the Lennoxville Massacre, a turning point that would forever mark the history of the Hells Angels in Quebec. But instead of breaking the organization apart, the bloodshed made it stronger. That same year, the club expanded its alliances, partnering with Montreal's West End gang and factions of the Italian Mafia. Together, they built a criminal empire that revolved around multi-million-dollar drug operations. He then became a fugitive, evading justice for years before finally being caught. And his eventual conviction and role in the government's crackdown on biker violence ended his reign in the criminal world. Number 8. Paul Aishide. Paul Aishide led a double life as a respected stockbroker by day and a ruthless Hells Angels member by night. His involvement in the 2001 brutal murder of a woman in the Arizona desert marked a turning point, as he and his gang made an example of her for disrespecting them. He began beating her mercilessly and stomped on her while she laid defenseless on the clubhouse floor. Eventually, they threw the semi-conscious woman into the trunk of a car and drove off into the vast Arizona desert. When her body was found on Halloween, she had been stabbed nearly 30 times, and her murderers had tried and failed to cut off her head. After committing the murder, Aishide went on the run for 15 years, living under a fake identity in various countries until 2011, when he was captured and extradited to the US, where he faced charges for his crimes. Number 9. Yves Trudeau. Yves Trudeau was one of the most feared members of the Hells Angels, known for his brutal reign in the 1970s. Responsible for 43 confirmed murders, his methods ranged from shootings to bombings. In fact, in November 1984, he agreed to eliminate Paul April, who was suspected of having murdered West End gang boss Frank Dooney Ryan. Trudeau said he was hired by Ryan's successor, Alan the Weasel Ross. The bomb Trudeau built was delivered to April's downtown apartment, and the blast ended April's and 3 other men's lives, while at the same time blasting a huge hole in the side of the apartment on de Maisonneuve Boulevard. After years of terror, he turned informant in exchange for a lighter sentence. However, his post-prison life was marked by further criminal activity, including his arrest for sexual assault. He died in 2008, leaving a legacy of violence and betrayal. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.